millions of people believe there is a hidden truth being kept from humanity. A gigantic conspiracy. A lie so massive that it would involve governments, scientists, universities, and even space agencies.
Is perfectly flat.
According to this theory, the Earth is not a sphere, it is flat. But there is one surprising detail in this story. Many Flat Earth supporters claim that the Bible itself proves it. They quote verses, they point to ancient texts, and they insist that the scriptures describe a flat world beneath the heavens. But is that really true? Does the Bible actually teach that the Earth is flat? Or are these passages being completely misunderstood? Today we are going to examine the evidence, and some of it may surprise you. Stay until the end because there is one little known Bible verse that completely changes this discussion. The Flat Earth theory has gained enormous popularity, especially on the internet. Videos have accumulated millions of views. Entire communities have formed around this belief, and one of the most common arguments is based on the Bible. Supporters often point to expressions such as the four corners of the earth, the ends of the earth, the extremities of the earth. At first glance, these phrases may seem to suggest a flat surface. After all, a sphere does not have corners. But there is a problem. If we interpret these expressions literally, then we would also have to conclude that the earth has wings. This is because the Hebrew term used in some of these passages is related to the idea of edges or extremities extending outward, much like the wings of a bird. In other words, we are dealing with figures of speech, poetic expressions, in the same way that people today say, the sun rose. Even though we know that, technically, the earth is rotating. Everyday language is not a scientific description, and the Bible, kind of language. Think about it for a moment. When someone says north, south, east, and west, they are describing directions, not the shape of the planet.
I am so glad
the Bible uses the same approach. In Isaiah, we find the expression, the four corners of the earth. But in other passages, the same idea is connected to the four cardinal directions. In other words, the goal was not to teach geometry. The goal was to communicate totality, all humanity, sabadiyao, entire inhabited world, every place on earth. In fact, we still use similar expressions today. People often say, the four corners of the world, yet no one believes the earth is a square. Therefore, using this passage as proof of a flat earth requires completely ignoring the context of the language being used. And there is another fascinating detail. While some try to use these texts to defend a flat earth, there is a verse that points in the opposite direction. Centuries before telescopes, centuries before satellites, centuries before photographs from space, the book of Isaiah described God as dwelling above the circle of the earth. Think about that. At the time this text was written, many civilizations held highly inaccurate ideas about the shape of the world. Yet the text does not describe a square earth, nor a world resting on giant pillars, nor a planet supported by mythical creatures, as some ancient cultures believed. Instead, it speaks of a circle. Some scholars even argue that the original word may carry the idea of something spherical, although there is debate about that interpretation. But one thing is certain. Nothing in this passage supports the idea of a flat earth. Absolutely nothing. And now we arrive at perhaps the most famous argument of all, the temptation of Jesus. Perhaps this is the most popular argument used by flat earth advocates. The account says that the devil took Jesus to an extraordinarily high mountain, and from there showed him all the kingdoms of the world. Some people ask, if all the kingdoms could be seen from a single mountain, wouldn't that prove the earth is flat? The answer is no, and for one very simple reason. There is no mountain on earth from which a person can literally see all the kingdoms of the world. Not today, and certainly not in ancient times. But there is something even more important. The text says that the devil showed Jesus not only the kingdoms, but also their glory, their wealth, their power, their magnificence. How could anyone see all of that simply by looking across the horizon? They couldn't. And there is one decisive detail. The Gospel of Luke says that the devil showed Jesus all the kingdoms of the inhabited earth. That goes far beyond the limits of normal human vision. For this reason, many scholars conclude that Jesus was shown a supernatural vision, a symbolic presentation, something similar to a projection. Not a literal geographical observation, Therefore, this account does not teach that the earth is flat. In fact, it is not discussing the earth's shape at all. The focus is the temptation of Jesus, not the geography of the planet. After examining all the evidence, the conclusion becomes clear. The Bible does not teach that the earth is flat. The expressions used in Scripture are figures of speech. The so-called four corners of the earth refer to all humanity, the entire inhabited world, not a square-shaped planet. Furthermore, the passages often cited as proof of a flat earth do not withstand careful examination within their proper context. Perhaps the most important question is not, is the earth flat? But rather, are we interpreting what we read correctly? Because many times, a sentence taken out of context can appear to say something completely different from what it actually means. And that is exactly where many debates begin. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever heard someone use the Bible to defend the flat earth theory? Do you think those arguments make sense? Or do you believe the passages have been misunderstood? Leave your opinion in the comments below. And if you enjoy deep biblical analysis, historical mysteries, and controversial topics that challenge common assumptions, subscribe now. Because the next video may completely change the way you view another highly debated subject in the Bible.